What's going on, guys? This is Aaron from Departures Capital, and we're here with Whit Pepper, President and Chief Commercial Officer at Atmofizer Technologies. Nice to have you on, Whit. How are you doing today?
Thanks, Aaron. Glad to be here. How are you?
I'm good. Excited to be talking about Atmofizer. So let's start by learning a little bit more information about Atmofizer. Can you tell us what the company does?
Sure. So Atmofizer, we're focused on delivering a whole new paradigm in making air a lot cleaner, better, safer, at a lower economic cost, and also with less environmental impact than traditional means.
That's very interesting. So, you recently joined the company a few weeks ago and did not come from biotech or medical devices industry. What made you leave being a partner in a predominantly advisory and financial services firm?
So the big thing in those sort of businesses, you get to see a lot of different business types, a lot of different models. And having come from management consulting background, still had a lot of those networks, either in investment banking, but also in a lot of the corporate leadership sectors in the US and in Europe. And so from time to time, you get brought in a lot of interesting things, or get at least to see some things. And certainly during the pandemic, there were a lot of biotech and medical type of startups that, there were a lot of sort of participate in a lot of forums where was looking at, a lot of scientists and engineers were bringing interesting technology, and there were people there who from the investment community, people there with backgrounds in management consulting, turnaround, startups, those sort of things from a corporate side, and always kind of looking at how do you help get a technology into a commercialized form more quickly to help deal with the pandemic, because it just felt like the smartest minds in the world were working on trying to stop COVID-19, yet the virus always seemed to be one step ahead. And through some of that, one of the things that it come through was looking at, this dilemma of that filtration, because air filtration is very important, obviously, for air quality. Air pollution is a huge problem all around the world. Air pollution, and more people have died from air pollution and smoke inhalation and airborne infectious disease, and the pandemic killed. The pandemic just really kind of, I think, brought it to light that there are things out there that are so small that filters can have a hard problem catching them, and even, this mask works, this doesn't. So that was really an interesting sort of issue. Say, how is this challenging the world so much, and something that brought us to its knees? And one of the things that emerged was that so many companies were trying to chase making filters tighter or dealing with these ultrafine particles, these nanoscale particles that are so deadly, coronavirus being one of them. Well, something came across that was from Germany, that was a technology that had been invented, saying, well, you can't make the filters any smaller, because the tighter you weave a filter, you're going to have a hard time getting any air through it. I can relate to that, because you wear an N95, N99, and it felt so hard to breathe, but you knew that was protecting you. But when you start looking at mechanical devices, whether it's an air conditioning system or a home air purifier, think of the amount of air and energy you'd have to take to actually have any sort of effective air exchange through a filter that was dense enough to stop this. So in looking at that, the Atmofizer had this unique way of making particles bigger. So it was really turning the whole paradigm of air purification on its head. Rather than trying to make filters tighter, which is really, since the HEPA filter came out in the 1940s, and HEPA filters are very good, but even there are some particles that are difficult to filter with any single type of filter. But filtration really had kind of reached its limits. At least I felt that way from a commercial analysis. So looking at this, it was this idea of making particles bigger, but doing without byproducts. From a commercial perspective, Atmofizer had a unique way of dealing with this that made total logical sense to me, because everything I read in my own research and due diligence and talking to a lot of people in the industry just seemed to reconfirm a couple things. One, making filters any smaller wasn't really an option, right? And to have a good filter, a good HEPA filter, a high MERV rating, which is the rating in the United States that we use predominantly to determine how well a filter can take out these smaller particles, it's very expensive. And then you've got the issue too, if you're collecting all these really nasty bad things on the filter, if you do catch them, you could have live virus and bacteria sitting on your filter, and that's not a good thing either. So the idea of a device or a technology that would not create any byproducts, that could actually make these dangerous nanoparticles in the ultrafine range. These are particles that are so small, and why they're so dangerous is they'll bypass most filtration, but they can go straight into your bloodstream. When you inhale the dangerous nanoparticles, they go straight through the lungs into your bloodstream and can get into the brain and your other organs.
Yeah, that sounds like really interesting technology for Atmofizer. I see what drew you to it. So Atmofizer recently announced some very encouraging test results. Could you tell us a bit more about those?
So something really interesting that showed that agglomeration was working was that in our tests, we were able to show that ultrafine particles, these are tiny nanoparticles in the range of 0.017 microns to 0.122 microns, which is one of the little bins we were measuring, that we're able to decrease those by 44% at a rate of 1.4 liters a minute, just in a very preliminary test. And why is that important? That's a lot of math. And that's when you're in your calculator, you get an E and a lot of zeros on it and a bunch of the funny kind of symbols that mainly scientists use. But what that says is those tiny particles that quickly were disappearing, which means they were growing. And something that we've just announced and seen, and that's coming out recently, is that we've seen an 82% decrease in particles below 1 micron, right? So those are some of the most dangerous particles out there, right? So being able to do that, then we've seen a 2x increase in particle sizes above 2.5 in that 2.5 to 5 micron range. And why that's so important is because this PM 2.5, which is particulate matter 2.5 or 2.5 microns, it's viewed that pollution below that range is something people are very concerned about because of just that sort of size and how easily that can enter the body. And certainly when we're dealing with the nanoscale type thing, the billionth of a meter one, where you find a lot of very bad smoke, pollution, and airborne viruses and bacteria that are even much smaller than that. The next step for us was to then take what we've proven works, because we know the agglomeration works. The labs have shown that we agglomerate and the effect it has on the ultrafine particles. The UV system, the second half of the atmofizing process, was doing its job against the viruses and bacteria.
So why do you believe the company is well positioned for the future right now?
So from everything that certainly I've seen when looking at this and all the talks I've had with people in the industry, analysts and people who are customers to the industry, which includes really everyone who buys something for the home, but particularly the people who have to pay large electrical bills or buy lots of filters, that there's a general understanding that air filtration expectations aren't going away. Now, coronavirus, this is so much bigger than just COVID. I mean, COVID raised awareness, but again, the things like wildfire smoke, the sort of smoke firefighters encounter, all the other sort of interiors or just bad particles that come from pollution and even other airborne infectious diseases. They've been around forever. They're going to be around for a long time. There hasn't really been any innovation in dealing with those since, again, the HEPA filters in the 40s designed to block radioactive particulates. The new paradigm we see is making the particles bigger, doing it without creating byproducts, and then being able to offer those three core benefits: better air, lower operating costs, and lower negative impact on the environment. So something that's so important with this is that while coronavirus has really raised everyone's awareness of ultrafine particles and how dangerous they are, and how the nanoscale particles are really the things that need a lot more focus if you're truly going to have better air quality, is that we're actually working with an IndyCar team. So for the Indy race, so that for the Indianapolis 500, their pit crew and their analyst trailer, if you've ever seen a professional race, whether it's Formula One or IndyCar, NASCAR, there are a lot of folks just monitoring everything on the car and the driver. And there where those vehicles sit and those teams sit, there's a ton of pollution just from, they're normally in an enclosed sort of area. And then they're encircled by a stadium and a track. So there's a lot of just, you name it, kind of pollution in there. So one of the major IndyCar teams has asked us to outfit their trailers and their crew areas with Atmofizer technology to deal with particularly the toxic nanoparticles that are just all over the place at those sort of events. So, and that is at the forefront of what we're doing, working in the vehicle space to be able to deal with industrial pollution, particularly from combustion engines. So we're expecting some very interesting results from that.
Yeah, no, that's a really interesting technology. So where do people go for more information about Atmofizer?
The best place to go right now is our website, which is atmofizer.com. Another spot is our LinkedIn page, just Atmofizer Technologies. There we do a couple things. One, we update our followers on technology, where we are. And of course, we're always releasing any of those formal things to the market first. We're a public company, so we respect that, and we appreciate our shareholders and want to get the market its information first and at the same time. But we release a lot of that on our LinkedIn page. But we also, in LinkedIn, republish a lot of articles that we think will help people generally manage the quality of air in their homes, their offices, and schools on their own, and just trying to giving people the tips and tricks of what to look for and how to handle it.
Yeah, that sounds great, Whit. So thank you so much for all the information. Best of luck with everything, and I look forward to having you back on potentially in the future for an update.
Thank you, Aaron.
If you like these videos, kindly hit that subscribe button and the bell for notifications. Drop us a comment down below. We'd love to hear from you. And finally, always remember, Departures Capital is for information, education, and entertainment purposes only. Don't buy or sell stock because you heard it on here. Buy or sell stock because you've done your research, you've done your thorough due diligence, and you're making your own personal investment decisions for yourself. This video is not financial advice. Furthermore, this video may or may not have been sponsored by the companies that we've profiled within this video, and we may or may not own shares of any of the profiled companies in this video. If you want to know the full disclosure details, check the description down below, along with thoroughly reading our disclaimer. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and I look forward to seeing you in our next video.